International diplomacy is usually shrouded in secrecy, with world leaders and intelligence agencies operating behind closed doors, far from the public eye. Decisions that shape the fate of nations are often made in hushed tones, away from cameras and headlines. But former President Donald Trump shattered that norm by publicly confirming he authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. This was not just a slip or a rumor, it was a direct admission, broadcast to the world, breaking the traditional silence that surrounds intelligence work. This rare admission exposed the shadowy world of intelligence, instantly escalating tensions between the US and Venezuela. Suddenly, what was once whispered about in diplomatic circles became a headline, fueling suspicion and anxiety on both sides. The two countries have long distrusted each other, clashing over politics, economics, and human rights. Their relationship has been marked by sanctions, accusations of election interference, and heated rhetoric, creating a climate of mutual suspicion that has only grown more intense over the years. Trump's announcement raises urgent questions that go beyond the immediate headlines and strike at the heart of international norms. What does it mean for a leader to reveal such sensitive operations? Does it set a new precedent for transparency, or does it endanger lives and diplomatic efforts? How will it impact an already volatile region? Latin America has a long history of foreign intervention, and this revelation could inflame old wounds, spark new conflicts, or shift alliances in unpredictable ways. The move challenges international law and national sovereignty, turning a hidden conflict into a public confrontation. It forces the world to confront uncomfortable truths about power, influence, and the rules that govern global affairs. Now the world is watching Venezuela's response and the reactions of other nations. Allies and adversaries alike are recalibrating their strategies, weighing the risks and opportunities of this new reality. The public nature of Trump's statement forces all parties to take a clear stance. There's no room for ambiguity. Every word and action will be scrutinized, and the consequences could echo for years to come. This video will unpack the history, the announcement, the global reactions, and the complex web of interests that brought us to this moment. We'll explore the far-reaching implications for international relations and what this means for the future of diplomacy, intelligence, and global stability. The stakes have never been higher, and the world is holding its breath as history unfolds before our eyes. To grasp today's crisis, we must revisit the US-Venezuela relationship, once anchored by oil. Venezuela's vast reserves made it a key US supplier, but that changed with Hugo Chávez's rise and his anti-US socialist agenda. Under Chávez and Maduro, Venezuela became a vocal critic of US influence, while Washington condemned Caracas for authoritarianism and human rights abuses. US sanctions deepened Venezuela's economic crisis, worsening life for ordinary citizens. The US recognized opposition leader Juan Guaidó as interim president in 2019, directly challenging Maduro and further isolating Venezuela. Trump's recent move is the culmination of decades of hostility, shifting from sanctions to covert action. Years of ideological and resource-driven conflict have bred deep distrust, making this escalation especially dangerous. The region now faces unpredictable consequences. In a move that shocked both Washington insiders and the international community, Donald Trump publicly confirmed that he had signed a presidential finding authorizing the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. This rare admission from a sitting president broke with decades of tradition, where such actions are typically shrouded in secrecy and never openly discussed. Trump justified his decision by raising alarms about Venezuela's alleged involvement in sending criminals across the U.S. border and its suspected role in international drug trafficking. He painted a picture of a nation exporting chaos and instability, suggesting that covert action was necessary to protect American interests and national security. Publicly acknowledging covert operations is almost unheard of. These missions rely on absolute secrecy to succeed. By lifting the veil, Trump not only surprised intelligence officials, but also risked exposing sensitive strategies and sources. Intelligence experts quickly voiced concern, warning that Trump's approach could turn a carefully planned secret mission into a public spectacle. They argue that such openness undermines the effectiveness of covert action, potentially endangering operatives and compromising future intelligence work. Despite the bold announcement, Trump remained vague about the operation's details, refusing to clarify whether the mission targeted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro directly or focused on broader objectives. A presidential finding is a powerful tool, capable of authorizing a wide spectrum of actions, from intelligence gathering and surveillance to supporting opposition groups or even pursuing regime change. The scope is often left deliberately ambiguous. Legally, the president is required to notify select members of Congress about such findings, but does not need their approval. This grants the executive branch significant latitude to act swiftly and decisively, often without public oversight. By making the covert overt, Trump shifted the balance from secret statecraft to open confrontation, sending an unmistakable signal to Maduro and the world that the U.S. was willing to escalate its pressure campaign. This unprecedented move thrusts the conflict out of the shadows and onto the global stage, drawing the attention of world leaders, international organizations, and the media. As the world watches and waits, uncertainty hangs in the air. The consequences of Trump's revelation remain unclear, leaving many to wonder what the next chapter in this high-stakes drama will bring. President Maduro responded swiftly, denouncing Trump's announcement as an act of aggression. Surrounded by military leaders, he accused the U.S. of imperialism and claimed the real motive was Venezuela's natural wealth: oil, gas, and gold. Maduro dismissed U.S. claims about drugs and prisoners as pretexts, rallying Venezuelans to defend their sovereignty. He placed the military on high alert, mobilizing troops and broadcasting images of readiness nationwide. Maduro invoked the history of U.S. interventions in Latin America, painting Venezuela as the latest target. His rhetoric mixed nationalism, historical grievance, and military posturing to consolidate power and galvanize support. The nation is now bracing for confrontation, united against what Maduro calls blatant imperial aggression. The crisis has become both a political and military standoff. Since September 2025, the United States has significantly ramped up its military presence in the Caribbean, just north of Venezuela. This move marks one of the largest U.S. deployments to the region in recent years, drawing global attention and sparking debate about American intentions. Today, around 10,000 U.S. troops, 8 powerful warships, and a nuclear-powered submarine patrol these strategic waters. Their presence is a clear signal of American military might and a reminder of the U.S.'s ability to project power far from its shores. U.S. forces have intercepted and destroyed several vessels suspected of drug trafficking, resulting in dozens of deaths at sea. These aggressive actions have drawn sharp criticism from international observers, who have condemned them as extrajudicial and potentially unlawful. In a further escalation, President Trump ordered B-52 bombers to fly near Venezuela's coast. These flights, involving some of America's most iconic strategic bombers, were widely interpreted as a dramatic show of force and a warning to the Maduro government. Officially, Washington claims the buildup is aimed at combating drug trafficking networks operating in the region. However, many analysts and regional leaders believe the true purpose is to increase pressure on President Maduro's government and influence Venezuela's internal politics. The scale, timing, and coordination of these operations suggest a dual purpose, not only targeting narcotics smuggling, but also sending a powerful message of intimidation to Caracas and its allies. This rapid militarization of the Caribbean raises the risk of miscalculation, misunderstanding, and even accidental conflict between U.S. and Venezuelan forces. Tensions are running high, and the margin for error is dangerously thin. The region now sits atop a powder keg, with any spark potentially igniting a much larger confrontation. As the world watches anxiously, the stakes for peace and stability in the Caribbean have never been higher. The Trump administration's claims about Venezuela as a drug hub are widely disputed. UN data shows most cocaine comes from Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia, not Venezuela. Critics compare these claims to the false intelligence that led to the Iraq War, warning of another conflict built on shaky evidence. The allegation that Venezuela is sending criminals to the U.S. also lacks proof. Many argue these justifications are pretexts for regime change and control of Venezuela's resources. Calls for transparency and honest debate are growing, as acting on disputed claims could have catastrophic consequences. The controversy over U.S. motives is now central to the crisis. The Venezuela crisis echoes a long history of U.S. intervention in Latin America, often led by the CIA. For many, Trump's announcement confirms a familiar pattern of interference. The 1954 CIA-backed coup in Guatemala and the 1973 coup in Chile are infamous examples. Both toppled elected leaders and led to decades of violence. In the 1980s, the U.S. funded Nicaraguan Contras, fueling civil war and scandal. These actions left deep scars and fostered distrust of U.S. motives across the region. Maduro and others invoked this history to rally opposition to U.S. intervention. For Latin America, Trump's move is not just a threat, it's a painful echo of past trauma. The past looms large over today's crisis. Venezuela's opposition is deeply divided over U.S. intervention. Maria Corina Machado, a prominent opposition leader, supports U.S. action, arguing it's the only way to restore democracy after years of repression. Some Venezuelans see U.S. help as hope for change, while others fear foreign intervention will spark civil war and erode sovereignty. Machado's ties to U.S. organizations fuel claims she's a puppet for American interests. She promises to privatize state resources and open Venezuela to U.S. investment, a stance her critics say would sell off national wealth. Not all opposition members agree. Many warn that U.S. military action could devastate the country. The opposition is split. Some welcome intervention, others dread its consequences. The internal rift complicates any path forward. Venezuela's future hangs in the balance. Trump's public authorization of CIA operations in Venezuela sets a perilous precedent in global affairs. It replaces quiet diplomacy with open threats, risking wider instability. For Venezuelans, the threat of conflict deepens an already dire humanitarian crisis and could trigger mass displacement. For the U.S., the move risks another costly intervention and further damages its credibility, especially in Latin America. The world now faces a volatile situation. Public threats, military buildup, and disputed intelligence have created a powder keg. The choices made in Washington and Caracas will shape not just Venezuela's fate, but the future of international norms. Will the world be ruled by law and diplomacy, or by force? The next steps will echo far beyond the Americas.